Hey, boo. Hey, you know what day it is. Come on now. Listen, don't trip on me. What day is it? It's Tuesday Tea with D. Come on, Tuesday Tea with D. Tuesday Tea with D. Tuesday Tea with D. Tuesday Tea with D. Come on, Tuesday Tea with D. Come on, Tuesday Tea with D. Come on, Tuesday Tea with D. Tuesday Tea with D. Tuesday Tea with Tuesday Tea with two Tuesday Tea with D. I'm over here cracking myself up. Hey, woo, hey! It's your girl, your coach, Detra Trueheart, your life purpose generator, purpose provoker. Way too excited over here today with this week's dose and serving of Tuesday Tea with D. And so I'm really excited about today's conversation. I feel like it is a connection to last week's conversation. And I think, like at the end of the day, my prayer is that the conversations that we're having every single week are helping you get out of your own way so that you can stop settling and show up for yourself in the same way that you show up for others. And so today's conversation is around learning from failure. Don't run from it, right? It's called Learn from Failure. Don't run from it. And this is somewhat of an oldie but goodie, but I have been in a space where, like last week, we talked about doing something different, switching it up, right? Maybe like what you're doing, even if it is good, you can do something different. But I think one of the biggest things, we have this fear of failure. And so before I even get into that, let's talk about this tea. This is a peach turmeric tea. I think I may have had this last week. This is one of my teas from Hilton Head. And I've just been deciding like some of the teas that I have not been drinking, that I want to drink them. And so again, this week is a peach turmeric tea. One of my loose tea blends with honey and of course lemon in it. And it's so good. All my teas are good. And they have different flavors. And I think I drink them based upon the mood. I don't know. Do you drink tea? What kind of tea you be drinking? I know we got a lot of coffee drinkers out there. So, but how are you? I hope you are well. Hope you had a fabulous resurrection weekend. Just all the things, right? Things have been really good on this end, really, really busy. And so I've been taking some time to be intentional about being quiet and really hearing from God and really refilling my cup because I've been pouring out a lot lately. And so before I get into today's conversation, I really want to remind you to make sure that you are filling your cup, that you are intentional about filling your cup. Make sure that you are giving out of your overflow and not what is due for you. Okay. And so today's conversation is brought to you by my 90-minute strategy session, my Get Unstuck and Get Started strategy session. And it's an amazing opportunity to get into my space, ask questions, but also allow me to coach you through, one specific area that you need kind of like a quick push in. Like there's some stuff that you need time, like you got to work through it, but there's some other stuff that like literally you just need somebody to give you a different perspective, show you how to do it from in a different way. And then like you're off and moving. And so I want to encourage you to, go to the link on the screen, TrueheartSpeaks.com, no, TrueheartSpeaks.as.me/get started so that you can get started with me, right? Let's get you unstuck. Let's get you started so that we can have conversation. And guess what? Sometimes you'll realize after the 90-minute session that you want more, which is normally what happens. But if you don't, that's okay too. But I think let's just get started, right? Let's just kind of dive in. Let's have conversation. Let me kind of coach you through, give you some strategy to get you moving. And then we can kind of pick it up after the fact. But I want to encourage you to, and I want to remind you that I have 5 of those each month. I'm bringing those back. Those used to only be with my 3, 6, and 12-month coaching. But I'm bringing them back because I'm realizing that some people don't need, right, long-term coaching. They want strategy, right? They want to know how to do a thing, or they need, want to ask questions about a specific thing and be able to, dissect a thing with me. And so I understand that clarity comes when you're able to get quiet, when you're able to get clear, and when you're able to get focused. And sometimes you need someone to refocus you and really kind of look at a specific area or a specific thing that you're struggling with and say, okay, have you thought about doing it this way? And most times you'll be like, yeah, but not from that perspective. So at any rate, book your session, your 90-minute strategy session. Go to trueheartspeaks.as.me/get started. Again, 5 spots every single month that I have, and I may even bring it down to 4, depending upon my capacity and what I have going on for quarter 2. So let's talk today about learn from failure, don't run from it. I don't know about you, but sometimes there are things that when we're thinking about it, it's like, oh, like, what if I fail? Right? What if it doesn't work? Like, what if I look crazy in front of the people? And so many times we're so afraid to fail and so afraid to try something new that we never do anything. Can you raise your hand and say, child, you talking to me already? We run from failure instead of running towards it. We run from, the fact that, like, oh, I'm trying this the very first time and it may actually not work. And maybe that's not the focus is not whether I fail, but sometimes the focus is just, how about I try it? Right. And so a lot of times we hide behind bushes when we think failure is lurking, and maybe it is, right? But you learn so much from your failures, and I'll say it this way, and I've said it multiple times. You will learn so much more from your failures than you ever will from your successes. You will learn, you can tweet me on that. You will learn so much more from your failures than you will from your successes, right? It's in your failures that greatness is created. It is in your failures that your greatness and your success is defined. It's in your failures that sometimes it is refined. And so you don't want the possibility, or you don't want to let the possibility of what could never happen keep you from trying and actually making it happen. You have to learn how to confidently look the prospect of failure in the eye and move forward anyway. I know that that's challenging, and I'm going to pause for a second here, because sometimes the fear of failure is so heavy that we never, ever, ever, ever get started. And so my challenge to you is to look at it from this perspective. It's not a question of if you will have problems. It's not a question of if you have challenges. It's not a question of if you have failures, right? Because you will. But how are you going to deal with it? How are you going to deal with the problems? How are you going to deal with the struggles? How are you going to deal with the challenges? How are you going to deal with the failure? We will all have things that will come into our lives that will shake us up and kind of make us kind of jittery, right? But never really to break us, right? It's to build us, it's to refine us, it's to mold us, right? It's really even to some extent to shake some stuff off of us that can't go into this next level. And so we've heard this saying, right? What the devil meant bad for your life, God can most assuredly turn it around for your good. And so we know Romans 8:28 says that, and we know that all things work together for the good of those who love God and are the called according to his purpose. All things are working together for your good. Trust and know that God has your best interest at heart when he allows obstacles to come your way. Everything that you're experiencing is preparing you for where you are going. Everything that you are experiencing is preparing you for where you're going. It may not feel like it. It may not look like it, child. Listen, I'll be asking the same questions like, Lord, you sure? Because like, I feel like we could leave this part out of the book. You know what I'm saying? But let God shake some stuff up in your life, right? Sometimes you need to fail. Sometimes we get a little cocky, right? Can we be honest? Sometimes we need to taste a little bit of the humble pie to understand that everything is not going to always work out the way we want it to work out. That everything is not always going to be the way we deem that we want it to be. And sometimes we got to roll with the punches. Sometimes we got to pick our faces up off the ground and we got to keep moving, right? And so I want to encourage you to look at it. And somebody, Teresa Renee Hunt, and so if she's watching, shout out to you, boo. Hey, boo, hey. She gave me a prophetic word, and the word was basically that, like, the season that I'm in and the stuff that I was going through at the time was literally shaking me up, right? And that there were some things that was like at the bottom, kind of like a salad dressing that you shake it up, and like kind of like an Italian dressing where you shake it up and all the stuff is coming together. And so I want to share this with you, that there may be some ingredients that have settled down at the bottom that are needed to spice up your life too, right? Your purpose, your destiny, your assignment, your call. And so you got to shake them up. And sometimes if you won't shake them up, God will put things in your life to shake it up for you so that you can experience the full essence of all of the flavors that you possess. And so my question is will you fail backward or will you lean in and fail forward, right? Don't run from it, run to it, learn everything that you can, learn from your failures, learn from what you did wrong. And sometimes it's not a matter of what you did wrong. You're still trying to figure out what's working. You're still trying to figure out what's working. And so sometimes you don't figure out what's working the very first time, right? If you're creating something, you don't, like, most books are not created on the first draft. Like, there are multiple edits, there are multiple revisions. And even once in, like, a movie, right? The first script is not the official script. And then depending upon the movie that you're watching, right? You see the deleted scenes. Like, even once they go through the full final edit of the video of the movie, and even maybe a book of some sort, that they'll go back and they'll watch it and they'll say, okay, we don't really need that, right? We don't really need that. We can pull that out. That doesn't help really tie everything together. We need to move this around. And so sometimes maybe you need to look at the failure. And I've heard this before, look at failure as feedback. What is it trying to tell you? What is it trying to teach you? What is it that you need to be learning as it relates to the process that you're going through, right? And so life is about solving problems, right? And so you can change your perspective when pursuing greatness. You have to change your perspective when pursuing greatness. You have to look at yourself as a problem solver. And so you can't focus on the problem. You got to focus on the solution. And if it didn't work or if it doesn't work, how can you tweak it to make it better the next go round, right? Or do you scrap it and do you move on? Remember that learning to move on is just as important as staying around to try to fix something. And you got to have wisdom to be able to decide on how that works for you. Some stuff, if you've been working on it for, right, an extended period of time, like we talked about last week, like, how long are you going to keep doing the thing that's not working, right? Before you do something different. And then even if it is working, maybe it's time for you to do something new, right? Not knowing that in doing something new, it might actually, the result may come quicker and faster and more expeditiously. And so the other part is in knowing and using wisdom in how to move is you cannot forget that God is in the middle of all of it, right? We cannot, and we can't forget to keep him in the mix, right? We can't forget to seek him and talk to him about what's going on in our lives, right? Some things are not meant for you to touch. And so maybe you're going through a thing, right? And so you don't want to, walk into that failure or you don't want to fail in a particular thing. But sometimes it's necessary, and not necessarily for you to fail because, God wants you to fail, but simply because there's something that he's developing in you. And so it's not even meant for you to touch it. It's meant for you to go through it. And so you got to keep moving. There's a quote that says, like, if you try, you stand a chance of losing, but if you don't, you've already lost. If you try, you stand a chance of losing, but if you don't, you've already lost. And so a lot of times, again, when we look at failure, it's like, well, I lost, like I didn't win. It's like, well, if you never try, you've already lost. There is no possibility of winning, right? Trying gives you at least a 50% chance of succeeding, of winning, of making it through. And so I want you to be encouraged today around looking at failure from the perspective of don't run from it, run to it, because there's something that you can learn from it. There's a lesson that you can learn from it. There's feedback that you can get from it. And so sometimes, right, it's simply not to do this again. Let's just be honest. And sometimes it's, man, like, okay, how can I tweak this? I was almost there. Right? Or dang, like a couple more tweaks and this will be just right. Right? And so if you think about Henry Ford, who created Ford Motor Vehicles, right? Motor Company. When he first started, I think there were at least 5 or 6 different translations, right? I will call them, of the car before the car became the first car that he created. And there's a few others that I want to share with you. And so if you think about Albert Einstein, right? And so most of us take Einstein's name as synonymous with genius, but he didn't always show promise. Einstein did not speak until he was 4. He did not read until he was 7, causing his teachers and parents to think that he was mentally handicapped, slow, or antisocial. And it says eventually he was expelled from school and was refused admittance to the school that he was attending at the time. And it might have taken him a bit longer, but most of us would agree that he caught on pretty well in the end, winning the Nobel Peace Prize and changing the face of modern physics. Thomas Edison, in his early years, teachers told Edison that he was too stupid to learn anything. Work was no better, and he was fired from his first two jobs for not being productive enough. Even as an inventor, Edison made 1,000 unsuccessful attempts in inventing the light bulb. Of course, all those unsuccessful attempts finally resulted in the design that worked. And I think I've seen a quote that says it was 10,000. Whether it's 1,000 or 10,000, just imagine doing something at least 1,000 times before you figure out what works. Let's pause right there for a moment, because that's a word. What if you made 1,000 attempts at a thing? Some of us, child, after 5, we ready to throw the whole thing in the garbage, just throw the whole thing away. But after 1,000 unsuccessful attempts at inventing the light bulb, what if your tenacity to accomplish it was greater than your fear to fail at it? I'm gonna say that again. What if your tenacity, right, to accomplish it, to make it happen, was greater than your fear of failing, your fear of it not happening? What would we be able to accomplish? Let's talk about Oprah Winfrey, right? I've seen multiple videos going around around the first time, that she was in video and TV, where they wouldn't pay her the same as her counterpart. And then also they told her she was unfit for TV. She's a billionaire now in media and entertainment. The woman who they told was unfit for TV, multiple seasons of her own show, created her own studio. I mean, come on now, right? Michael Jordan. Most people wouldn't believe that a man often lauded as the best basketball player of all time was actually cut from his high school basketball team. Luckily, Jordan didn't let that setback stop him from playing the game. As he stated, I have missed more than 9,000 shots in my career. I have lost almost 300 games, and on 26 occasions, I have been entrusted to take the game-winning shot, and I missed. I have failed over and over and over again in my life, and that is why I succeed. Again, learn from your failure. Don't run from it. And this is a lesson for me too, because sometimes when we're trying something new or when we're elevating, it's scary because we don't want to fail. We don't want to look like a failure. But can I just tell you that at this point in our lives and just in the way things are going, sometimes it's better to say, at least I tried, to know that it didn't work, as opposed to never having tried and always wondering what if. And so I want you to be in that space of getting out of your own way and just taking the next step to try. Don't worry about failure. Don't worry about failing, because guess what? You're going to fail. I think if we start saying we're okay with the fact that we're going to fail, and we know that failing is a part of the process, and we know that failing is a part of the equation, then maybe we'll do things a little bit more. And instead of worrying about what everybody else saying, like, see, I told you it wasn't going to work. Well, sometimes it's not always about whether it works. Sometimes it's literally, did you try? At least I tried. When my son was in pre-K and kindergarten, his teachers used to have a saying, try it, you might like it. And it was specific to food. And so even now, if there's certain things that, he won't eat, and I'm like, try it, you might like it. You've never had it before. And even certain things I'd be looking at like, And he'd be like, Mom, try it. You might like it. And I will. Sometimes I like it. Sometimes I don't. But at least I can say I tried it. Right? I don't like it. Because some people say, oh, I don't like that. Have you tried it? No, but I can look at it until I don't like it. Because some stuff we can't look at. But in relation to your goals, your life, your purpose, your ministry, your call, as you are being called higher, as you are being called deeper, as you are being stretched, as your capacity is widening, you're going to be called to do things that literally make you scared, like scared to the point of like your armpits is like soaking wet. You got a little pee running down your leg, like you're scared. And the best thing on the other side of that is knowing that you took the leap, you took the step, you took action, and whatever happens on the other side of it, you can learn from it, you can move from it. But the most important thing is that you didn't run from it. And so my prayer is that you will take what was shared today and you will start to look at the perception and the understanding and even just how you see fear and failure, or fear of failure, I'll say, from a different perspective. And so since failure is inevitable, if your perception of and response to failure were changed, this is going to be your journal assignment. What would you attempt to achieve? If your perception of and response to failure were changed, what would you attempt to achieve? I want you to think about it. And I'm sure that there are still some things that you have not tried or won't try because you're afraid of failing. But what if you were still afraid of failing, but you knew you needed to lean into it in order to achieve the success that you desire? Take some time, think about it, take some time to write about it, take some time and even think about the setbacks, the recent setbacks that you've experienced and how you responded. Did you let it keep you down or did you get back up? And so I hope that you got back up, but if not, now's the time to get yourself back up, dust yourself off, run towards those failures, because on the other side of those, if you lean into them and learn from every single one of them, it is going to be absolutely worth it. So again, here are your two writing assignments. If your perception of and response to fear were changed, what would you attempt to achieve? And what if you were still afraid of failing, but you knew you needed to lean into it in order to achieve the success that you desire? How would you respond to that? How would you move differently? How would you approach certain things differently? I'm sure on the other side of it, you'll see it wasn't as bad as I thought. I actually can do hard things with ease. And sometimes it's not with ease. I had to push through that thing, but I did it. And sometimes you'll say, you know what, it didn't work, but I learned a little bit about myself. I learned some things about myself through the process. And in the end, it will all be worth it. So you have an amazing day. You have an amazing week. And don't forget, if you're in a space and maybe fear of failure is one of the things that you need to work through, book a 90-minute strategy session so that we can kind of work through and kind of figure out maybe where it's taking root. And I can ask you some questions, and sometimes it's something simple, sometimes it's not. But I think, if you know that where you are and you've gotten yourself as far as you can take you and you need that extra push, I want to encourage you to book that strategy session, 90-minute strategy session. Go to trueheartspeaks.as.me/get started. I'm going to put this up here so you can look at it again on the screen and you can get that link. I'm going to take one last sip of this tea. And again, I will see you next time on Tuesday Tea with D. Tuesday Tea with D. Tuesday Tea with D. Tuesday Tea with D.